GM. Aww, you guys are so sweet. You're so sweet. So Sky, you love Sky too. If you don't know him, you will love him soon. So he's got to get mic'd up too. We're going to talk public goods sustainability, public goods whatever, and we're keeping it chill. None of that like screen stuff. Wow, that's such an old picture of me.
Testing, testing.
That was like, look at that. There's no gray in the beard. That was before the Dow put this here. You know. Are you mic'd? Oh, nice.
Testing, yes.
Nice. So, public goods, man. What do you think about public goods? How do we make them sustainable?
I am a big fan of public goods. I've been in the Dow space for a while, and people like Griff and Kevin Iwaki are the reason I also like public goods. What I saw, this says NounsDAO, but we actually forked NounsDAO because we saw this system with a ton of money. It had like $65 million. But all they were doing were proliferating the meme of nouns, which is fun, but I don't think Vitalik would buy a noun because I don't think he cares about the meme of nouns. But we said, let's take that mechanism that has a shitload of money and let's give it a mission to fund experiments in the public goods space. So we created a fork, easy fork of nouns called Public Nouns DAO. And we have been using that money to fund experiments in the public goods space. So the meta example is, we want to fund experiments like Public Nouns using the money that Public Nouns has. And so it's an example of seeing the public goods space, realizing there's not enough money in funding public goods, and so let's make more experiments to fund public goods. And so what I think the space needs is way more experimentation. We have a whole bunch of systems that we can go through now that are amazing in the public goods space, but anyone that has ideas for new, because when we created Public Nouns, we knew we weren't going to raise trillions of dollars to fund all the public goods that need to be funded, but there's an exponential effect where if you create something that funds experiments in the public goods space, maybe you're going to fund, maybe Giveth, maybe Gitcoin, maybe Public Nouns is going to fund the next thing that's going to raise $1 billion to fund public goods. And so it has this exponential effect. And so I think that applying that logic to the public goods space is what we need.
Totally. And maybe we'll just backtrack for the ITU crew that's like public good. What are you even talking about? Public goods is a huge meme in the crypto scene. And most of the time we're talking about open source software, right? Is a public good. It's something that everyone can enjoy and you can't really exclude people from enjoying. Public goods in the normal world are basically things that nonprofits and governments provide. And, not businesses. Because it's really hard to have a business model with revenue when you're providing value to everyone. And that's the challenge. And what's great about crypto is we have this power of just printing money, which is crazy, right? That's never really been in the, like you used to have an army to create an economy. Now you just need to know a couple of nerds and like, boom, you're good. You can create an economy. So it's never been at our fingertips like this before. And one of the things that's really exciting about creating these economies is that we could actually create economic models around public goods. So like Public Nouns, like Sky just said, right? All it does is fund public goods. It funded a Giveth quadratic funding round, which we can talk about a little bit later. It funded an art exhibit in the Denver Capitol, right? But it didn't ask for donations to get that money. It sold a token, specifically an NFT that looks like this guy. That must be yours, right?
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah. That's a Radical, so if you know Radical, the project, the heads of Public Nouns are heads related to organizations that are in the public good space. So that's a Radical.xyz head. There are Metacartel heads. There are Moloch DAO heads. There will hopefully soon be Giveth heads. There are Gitcoin bot heads. There are Panvala Stampy heads. And so we tweaked the art of nouns instead of just being a random noun object to having a theme that you can be proud of when you show this. So that's my profile picture, and it's almost a badge. If you know what that is, if you know that's a public noun, it's you automatically are part of this community that you can put me in this box of he probably really likes public goods and finding ways to support public goods?
Yeah. So there's like, in the public goods space, I like to break it up into two different realms. There's the economic games to fund public goods, and then there's the donation games to fund public goods. So the economic games all kind of have this same model. You issue a token, like public nouns, an NFT, or it could be like OP tokens, right? And by the way, I'm ripping this off of Lauren, who's in the front row. She gave a great talk at How to DAO yesterday, where she really breaks it down. So if you find that on YouTube, that's going to be a better example because I don't have slides. But there's, you have your project, you have some kind of value you want to create for the world, so you issue a token that you can give to people who create value. Those people that create value, maybe they create value by giving you money. Maybe they create value by doing labor. Maybe they create value just by being experts and judging things correctly, right? There's lots of ways to create value. So you issue a token to reward those value creators. But that doesn't matter if no one wants to buy it. So I've made lots of tokens, that like you've never heard of. The DAO, 27, testing things. You can make a token. If no one wants to buy it, it doesn't matter, right? So the real challenge is actually ensuring demand for your token and creating a market where you issue tokens to reward the people creating value in the public goods space, and then you create demand for that token. And usually you still need some kind of scarcity to build around. These economic models are amazing because you can reward abundance creation. And generally, capitalism is the enemy of abundance. To make profit in the capitalistic system, and not the free market system, but specifically this very capitalistic system, you have to have some kind of scarce resource to gate access to. Whether you're selling hot dogs, selling tickets, you need scarcity. And that's still true in these economic models. You need some kind of thing that this token, you only get this if you have this token. So you still have to ensure that demand, but once you have this magical sauce, you can create a marketplace, right? And then you get a bonus in here where speculators come in and start creating another demand system for that token that you created, because now they can make the market more efficient, and so they have to hold the tokens to do it. So you get kind of this bonus use case once you've created this double-sided market.
And some examples of that. So the scarcity is what makes something scarce, but assigning superpowers to why you would want one of those scarce things is part of that important part. So if you have a public noun, the superpower is you're one of 210 holders that get to decide how to divert $350,000 of ETH towards causes in the public good space. If you have a Give token, which powers the Giveth ecosystem, which is actually a really complex system that does a lot of amazing things, but one of the things you get to do is you get to boost and curate the list of all the projects on Giveth that in order. So when you go to a web page, there's unlimited scrolling. If you're on the 10th page down, no one sees that project. But what you can do is if you have a bunch of Give, you can stake it in the system, and you can stake it behind a project, so you do decentralized curation. And if you really want to, you could get any project to probably show up on the front page, the first 10 Giveth projects, and then everyone gives to it because it's right at the top, right? And then if you have Gollum token, right? You know what you get to do? You get to decide where millions of dollars of ETH staked in ETH staking system gets diverted to which projects just by staking Gollum token. You didn't know what you could do with Gollum token, did you? It's Gollum token, or GLM. And so there's actually reasons to hold these tokens that are scarce tokens. And so those superpowers are what creates a lot of the demand for having those tokens.
Yeah. Yeah, and with public nouns, it's just a straight governance token. There is a pool up there, and if you have a public noun, well, you had to send money to that pool, and now you get to decide which public goods get it. I think optimism is probably like the big one. I don't know. Optimism, retro PGF, right? Retro PGF is a really cool mechanism of distributing the rewards for public goods. Because there's a lot here, you know. There's one thing is getting the money to fund public goods. The other thing is distributing the money to the people who are providing public goods. So retro PGF is an interesting mechanism where, well, specifically in optimism, they just printed OP tokens. They got investors. They have a business model. Hey, we're gonna create a blockchain, well, a roll-up on top of Ethereum that people will want to use, and people will pay gas fees. And maybe one day we'll use those gas fees to buy OP tokens. Well, we're not going to say that because that might be illegal, but that's probably the business model, right? So. Then they're saying, well, we're also going to create 19% of all OP in existence is going to fund retroactive public goods funding in optimism. And so now they're giving away, like right now, they're giving away $50 million to anyone who can create value in the optimism ecosystem. So it's just this big pot of money that anyone can compete to provide value in optimism. They're creating a free market around providing public goods in the optimism ecosystem. And then they have 150 trusted people. Are you a badge holder? No. In optimism? No. I'm a badge holder. There's a few badge holders, I bet, in the audience. These trusted people get to decide which projects made the most impact, right? It's a really interesting model, and they're funding public goods without donations. It's this economic model. It's so cool.
So we only have 20 minutes here, but that was a bit about like public goods. But the other important word here is sustainability. And so, how do you make this sustainable, right? That's why these new systems that we're trying, we're seeing which ones are more sustainable, which ones are not. But the thing that I really like, so using protocol feeds, if every project that had like a big protocol, whether it's a DeFi protocol or an L2 protocol, started giving a percentage of their money towards public goods funding, that is a really good sustainable mechanism. Now, what I just learned, so currently the retroactive PGF and optimism goes to public goods in the optimism ecosystem. And ENS has a grants DAO, and I just learned this outside here. ENS has the normal grants DAO, which funds projects in the ENS ecosystem. But the more interesting thing is the grants DAO that's just funding general public goods. And so it's okay to fund public goods in your own ecosystem, but it's amazing if you take part of your money, and Optimism I don't think has done this yet, maybe they have a plan to do it, but ENS is already doing this. They're using some of their fees to fund just all general public goods. And so if everyone had a portion of their money going into systems that were funding general public goods, that becomes very sustainable as all of these systems grow. That's a lot of money that's going to be going towards public goods funding. How that money gets distributed and how you evaluate and how you then re-up is the next steps down the line, but coming up with where the funding is coming from is the first step in that.
Have you seen any other cool new mechanisms out there that you're excited about?
Kevin Owocki, just as part of his Zuzalo hackathon project, if you check his Twitter, he's used Dune to like graph the flows of where all the public goods funding is coming from. You'll probably see some ones on there they didn't recognize and where it's going to. If you have that mapped, it becomes easier to think about how to grow it. I think Protocol Guild, which is funding Ethereum core development, is actually probably one of the most interesting because there's this pot of money. There's a registry made by people that contribute to protocol, to Ethereum, core infrastructure, and they're getting streamed money as part of from this guild. And if I have money that I want to give to public goods and I don't know how to do it, you know what I can do? The easiest thing, I just throw it into the Protocol Guild, and I know it's going to get through these like pipes to really good, valuable people. I think Giveth has something with like donation.eth. Like if you yeah. If you don't know and you just if you have extra money to give to public goods, you could probably just send it to donation.eth, and it will go into the Giveth ecosystem. So having easy ways to put money into the pipes that will end up going where it needs to go, because if every project has to figure out how to distribute their own money into public goods, it becomes not scalable. And so it's like the force multiplier. I was just looking up like war terms, like combine, like when you use all the like different parts of a military to like, you get this exponential effect versus just one. If we all do this, put our systems together, you get like 1 + 1 + 1 is, 20 instead of 3.
Yeah, I'm excited to see a little checkbox underneath Uniswap and all the swaps where it's just like, would you like to donate to public goods? That's it. It's like you see that at the grocery stores sometimes. They're like, hey, you want to spare some change for whatever? It'd be nice to see these things integrated in. And then the protocol can decide where that money goes. But just giving the end user like an opportunity to start funding public goods. Because it feels good. We all feel good when we donate. When we support, when we volunteer, when we provide value to society. And it's funny that it doesn't have to be quantitative. It's qualitative. You can get a qualitative benefit. We're not all just like economic machines trying to maximize our profit all the time, right? We're not the rational economic actors. There are other things that we value. And I think in crypto we get sucked into that like quantification mechanism design all the time, and we forget about the higher levels of what people actually want to do.
And in this permissionless world, which we've seen with airdrops, and once there's something on Ethereum or a chain, anyone can deliver value to it or incentive or things in the future. So I actually think that, and Justin Drake says this with like people that run their own nodes maybe. So if you're running your own node in Ethereum, it's really good, but you're not getting anything extra. If you are part of Protocol Guild, you get their stream. If you hold a public noun, we know you're part of this community that like really likes public goods. As people launch new projects and stuff, I think that they'll start to deliver in like positive things and value to these communities of people that have these really good intentions. And so being a part of these communities can actually give you financial reward in the future. That's not the reason to do it, but that these would be amazing governors of systems related to public goods. People could assign responsibilities to these groups of people. And so this interconnectedness and building blocks is really powerful. And I think more value and decision-making and power will be delivered to these communities that exist, even if they're not already receiving that today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was weird. It was crazy to see it happen for Gitcoin in the last cycle, where it's like beginning of the bear market or beginning of the bull market. If you donated on Gitcoin, all of a sudden you started getting airdrops just because you were a good person. And it's kind of cool how like creating value for our ecosystem actually does end up being rewarded through all of these weird economic mechanisms.
And you'll see less of that in the bear market. But as we come out of the bear market, I think you will want to have been a part of these communities for a long time. So if you're not involved, get involved and building these systems. Yeah.
We still have time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can maybe get the questions.
Sure. Questions? Any thoughts? Yeah. Scream it. I'll repeat it. Oh, he's got a mic. Also, dominance assurance contracts. Have you seen that? Yeah.
That question will be about the sustainability. As I know, you had a problem in the optimism community for like providing some pre-money for the projects that don't have money, anything, and didn't get the grant without lockup. So what's your suggestion or what's your point of view of this problem? Because if I get some grant from the optimism community, for example, it will come with a 1-year lockup, and if I can't use that money, how can I solve my problems? That's the basic question, and what's your suggestion about that?
Yeah, that whole optimism, like, oh, you can't use the money for a year thing is pretty tough for small people, small projects that want to provide value in optimism ecosystem. And you know, they're having a bootstrap phase. You know, their dream in optimism, and I should say our dream in optimism, because we, like, the Giveth ecosystem really builds hard in optimism. The dream is that we will build an investor class that would actually be able to front the money for smaller projects that want to do cool things and have innovative ideas and be entrepreneurs to get the funding from the grants programs and from retroactive public goods funding. But it doesn't exist yet. So
yeah, if I don't know if Optimism is, but I think ENS grants are being distributed through Hedgie. Hedgie is the NFT that has the locked up tokens. Theoretically, in DeFi, you can borrow against that. So maybe they don't want you selling the OP, but if you have this as an NFT that that's holding the OP, you could lend that into DeFi, borrow against it, use that money, and when it gets unlocked, pay it back if they allow that.
yeah, and I'll be frank about, like, some of this stuff is just legal bullshitting, trying to pretend like the OP token isn't a valuable token, you know? It's like, no, it's just a reward token. It has no monetary value. You know, I mean, I remember Kevin Iwaki used to always be saying that meme, you know, GTC is a non-monetary, non-financial token. It has no monetary value, as it has a price on CoinGecko, right? And that's what is making Optimism not give you the money straight up, because it's not money. It's governance rewards, you know? And so some of this is just, well, they're a US-based company and they started this thing and they have these certain rules and they have to follow the rules, and this is how they're getting around the system, you know? So there's some impacts to that. Any other questions? Yeah. That's so convenient. You guys are close to each other. Mike is still there.
Thank you for your talk. How do you filter what is a public good and what isn't?
I mean, this is a tough thing, is like kind of everything is a public good. Like, there's a classical definition of public goods that's like non-excludable, non-rivalrous, and there is nothing that is that. Like, you know, it's like radio waves. If you have a radio, you know, like even, you know, you could say air is a public good unless you pollute it. You know, it's like, it's never, there are no pure public goods. But if you kind of make it a little bit wider, you could say, like, anything that's providing value to the public, you know, right? So, like, a lot of things are public goods. Is Aave a public good? Well, I have to pay fees when I borrow and lend, right? But at the same time, it's an open source protocol. It has value. So I feel like it's less about, like, what is a public good, what's not, you know, and it's more about, like, how much is the impact of this asset, of this resource that is being created? What is the impact to the public? Is it to a narrow group of people, right? Like, you know, a clean river, is that a public good? Well, only if you're anywhere near that river, right? So it's a public good for them, right? So, but which rivers are the most important to stay clean? You know, these are questions without answers. You know, it's a qualitative assessment. So it depends on what you're judging it by, where your framework is that you're judging the value that you want to see created.
Yeah, if a grant's going to 3 people that might build a really amazing system that's going to fund public goods, those 3 people are not a public good. So we're giving money to 3 people, but they have a goal and a plan to build something that is going to help public goods. And so it's not just funding straight public goods. That's why, at least Public Nouns, we say we want to fund experiments in the public good space, which is, it's really good that in this new space, it's really wide open. Like, unless you're clearly a scam, you can probably get public goods funding if you're building for the public and you're going to build something that could help the public good space in the future. So it's wide open. Unless you're, scammy, then you might have trouble getting money.
What do you work for any other public goods orgs besides Public Nouns? Not really.
I think so. I mean, lots of DAOs, and a bunch of the
Sure.
DAOs have missions that are related to public goods. Metacartel Grants DAO is effectively a public goods. It's been giving out grants for like 3.5 years with no strings attached, and it's funding a lot of the interesting projects that started in the space. And they're not investments; they're just grants. So that system itself, Moloch DAO, is a public good. It's funding a lot of important stuff in the space.
Yeah, and I work with Giveth and lots of other public goods projects, but if you are raising funds in the ecosystem, or even just for your own small nonprofit, we make it super easy. None of the technical stuff gets in the way. I mean, other than right now you have to have your own key, account abstraction soon enough, okay? But if you can get a key on MetaMask, you can raise funds for anything you want on Giveth. We do quadratic funding. We have effectively a tokenized tax deduction replacement. So let's say that you want to donate to your favorite project, but you don't pay taxes in the US, or you don't pay taxes wherever that project is incorporated, so you donate, you get nothing. Well, on Giveth, if you donate to any project, we don't care if they even have a legal entity, we will give you Give tokens, as long as they're a verified for good organization. So it's kind of like its own jurisdiction with a tokenized replacement for the tax deduction. So I see Soil DAO out there, yeah, doing it. They just raised a bunch of money on Giveth. So definitely check it out if you have any public goods projects, and we have all sorts of fun stuff to play with.
Okay, thank you guys for
Thank you,
your
guys.
time. Can you give a big round of applause?